welcome back to the Underdog podcast. In today's segment, we're doing another behind the business. In the last episode, episode 47, we kind of went through the early days of Underdog and up to where we went out to Los Angeles for, or at least started planning to go out to Los Angeles for the samples and getting the formulation dialed in for ultimately the launch of the product. So today we're going to talk about the formulation side of things and getting our first samples and going out to the actual facility where we did the sampling, dialed in the flavor, which was quite the process, but we'll try to make this as organized as possible because I think, one, there's some funny ass stories in here. We always do. I feel like every single business trip that we have, there's always something at the end of it we're like, that was crazy. Like the fact that
we
that
haven't
even
had a normal we haven't had a normal trip yet. Like every trip has been absolute chaos, like just scheduled to the ninth to just try and fit it in around everything else we have going on. Like we haven't
yeah.
had a normal trip where it's just like fly out there, take care of business, and come home. Like it's always just a scramble, but it's good. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. So now we began working with Power Brands. What was the date again? I think we went over it in the last episode, but
We started working with them around Christmas time, I want to
yeah,
say. Um, yeah, we had worked with them. Well, started communicating with them about what they could possibly do. Communicated our desired formula with them, everything that we wanted in it. From at this point, we had it pretty much dialed in to the 7 ingredients that you see in UD today. We had those pretty much outlined and the amounts. There were some small tweaks which we'll get into once we start talking about the specifics with Power Brands, but we pretty much had the formula down. We had told them what we wanted in it, and had kind of been communicating possibilities for production. But they started working on it shortly after Christmas time, and yeah, we received the first sample in May of 2022. So that was our freshman year. We were both. I was at LIU. You were at Skidmore. And yeah, it was, I mean, we spent most of the year planning it, which, I mean, we kind of touched on that in the last one with the business plan, just planning everything logistically, where we were going to source ingredients, how we were going to make this happen. But I'll let you pick it up. Yeah, we got our first sample kind of in the spring as school was wrapping up our freshman year in May there.
yeah, yeah. And we honestly we had no idea what to expect. I think just like in trying all the other energy drinks, that was one thing that we did a lot of was we were trying a bunch of different energy drinks, different flavors, trying to figure out how we do this thing and like what we shoot for, what's popular, what's the palette that people are looking for. But the one thing we didn't realize is those were finished products. I'm sure those brands have changed their flavor profiles numerous times in, before they brought it to market, and I think that was one thing that we were under the impression of is that we were going to get a finished product or close to a finished product when we first got the first sample, which wasn't the case. The first sample that we got, I remember opening it up. I was so excited, and it was just like I don't even know how to describe what it looked like. Um,
It looked like mud water, is what it
Mud
looked
water,
like.
yeah, mud water, like chunky mud water, and I think we probably got on a meeting that day and we were like, what the hell is this? Like, what did they put together? How did they think that this was something that we were looking for?
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I remember that too. I remember training it. I brought it into John's gym and let some of the other boys that were training there that day try it. And it tasted great. Now, which
Yeah,
I guess the next thing we'll get into is right from the get go, we knew with UD we wanted to be naturally flavored, naturally sweetened. We wanted to avoid, sucralose, ASK, all the shit that you see used to sweeten products today. And we wanted to keep it clean. So we got the first sample and they screwed up and it was sweetened with sucralose, which sucralose, for reference, I believe, don't quote me on this, I'd have to look again, but I believe it's 1,000 times sweeter than sugar. So it's very powerful, which is why it's so easy to flavor drinks with it or any product really. And that's why it's so common. It's so effective. It's a great artificial sweetener. And yeah, we got that first sample. It tasted amazing. We're like, oh, and like we said, strawberry lemonade was always our plan, even from back when we were doing the powdered pre-workout
yeah,
sample, like over a year prior to that. But we got that first sample. It tasted amazing. We're like, oh, like this is gonna be so easy. Like it tastes great. Now we just got to figure out like, okay, what isn't soluble in here? Like why is this kind of suspended in it? Um, which turned out to be the lion's mane mushroom because originally we were doing 2 grams of lion's mane mushroom whole. We ended up switching to an 8-to-1 extract, which eliminated the majority of the solubility issues. Um, but once we did that, we're like, oh, like this is gonna be a breeze. Like we'll take care of this solubility. It tastes great. Like we're gonna be cruising along here. And that was not the case. I believe we got a second one later on,
Mm.
and we still hadn't. At that point, we didn't know it was the lion's mane still, and it was still chunky. Um, and we were
Yeah,
just like, what the hell? Like, what are we
yeah.
doing?
And
And
and two
then,
things on this one. Two things on this one. So I think one lesson that we learned from that is that everything takes longer than you think. And we're still learning that to this day. And I think
God,
we
look at
try
the
to
third
be,
one we're doing right now.
yeah, I think we try to be more cognizant of it and like understanding of, hey, like as fast as you get things done on our end, there's always another party that is involved that is going to prolong the process and make it even longer. So, yeah, shoot for the short term, like act fast, be productive. But I think the thing that we learned is like anticipate a longer duration of whatever it is. If it's a project we're working on, or in this case, the samples, like it takes way longer. And we were anticipating strawberry lemonade, like, oh, it'd be a great summer flavor to have. We'll launch it in the summer. And with the marketing that they had of like, from idea to shelf in 90 days or whatever it was, we're like, oh, no problem, no factor. We'll make this work.
Yeah.
And little did we know it took longer than that. But um, I think starting off with the funny story is that when we went out there, so finally after how many samples did we do before we went out there? Two?
Two. Yeah, two got sent to us. Tried them. We each kind of got a bottle. I remember sending those to the hockey house because I didn't trust them going to the LIU mailroom.
Yeah, yeah.
And then yeah, we went out there for essentially the third round was when we went out there in July 17th, 2022.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean think about that time frame right there. It's what, 2 months from
Mm,
the time we got the first samples until we actually went out there. And we went out there. We're always every single business trip we've done, and this is just simply from a financial standpoint, like we try to trim it as much as we can, make it as short of a trip, the tightest window of scheduling you can possibly have. So I think we were there for what, a day, like
yeah,
one night.
I mean, I took a red eye
Yeah,
and got in. I flew out of Calgary that night. No, I flew out at like 4 in the morning, so I went up to
yeah,
Calgary kind of like the night before. Flew out first thing and landed I think like 15 minutes before you, and we had to be at Power Brands. I want to say it was 9 or 9:30, and we either landed at it was like 8 or 8:30. Like we
yeah.
had a tiny window to get
Yep.
there on time.
Yep. And we get out there, we're starving. You had a red eye, obviously you had no food or anything like that. And we went straight to the headquarters to get in there and start doing the sampling, like you said, like 15 minutes before or whatever, 30 minutes before.
Show up with all our luggage.
Yeah, we show up to the place, we got all of our luggage, our freaking backpacks, and that was a good first impression, I'm sure. But anyways, we get in there, we sit down at the table where, we're waiting for them to come out with our first samples of, iterations of what we wanted and suggestions we made after the second samples. And they
Yeah,
had they were saltines, I believe, um, laid out like just on the table right in front of us, and we would just start mowing them down. And we thought it was just like, oh yeah, grab and go type of thing. Like
little
here's a
snack.
little snack while you're waiting. And they come out, give us the first sample, and they're like, yeah, this is, it'll take as many as we need to, but make sure that in between the tastings, each sample that you try, clean your palate with the saltines. We look down, the whole sleeve of
They
saltines
were all gone.
on. We're like,
There
yeah,
was
we're
like
gonna,
two sleeves. There's probably
yeah,
like 60 crackers. We ate them all
yeah,
before we even got our first sample.
yeah, yeah. That was awesome. And
Oh yeah.
I guess so. The other thing too is that at this point in time, we hadn't tried the natural sweeteners yet.
No, and that was the
Yeah,
kicker. I mean, those they were probably laughing at us. Like we show up with our suitcases, two young kids. They're probably wondering like, what are these guys doing here? And
yeah,
then yeah, we eat all the crackers.
Yeah.
We look like fools. And then, yeah, they bring the first sample out of the lab for us with the natural sweeteners with obviously what it is today, monk fruit, erythritol, and stevia. And we tried it. And I remember looking at you and we're like, it legitimately tastes like cat piss. Like it was like drinking gasoline.
Yeah.
It was terrible. We're like, how are we even going to work with this? Like,
Yeah.
I remember debating. We honestly thought about calling Curry, and we can honestly considered using artificial sweeteners because it tasted so bad.
Yeah, right then and there too.
Um,
Like on
on
site,
the spot.
we might have
Yeah.
to switch to we kind of hit panic mode, which
Mm.
obviously I think damage control and we've gotten better at that in terms of okay, here's a conflict, like let's find a solution, not so much of um panicking and like, oh my God, what do we do now? It's like, all right, well, we're here, we have time, we had what, 3 hours to be there if we wanted to make tweaks to the flavoring. And this was the first freaking sample. We ended up going through roughly 20
Mm.
changes to the flavor profile. Obviously, at that point, we had the ingredients that we wanted to, besides the sweetener side of things. And, I think that first sample, too, we had the expectation of this is going to taste fairly similar to the original samples that we got, which were flavored with the sucralose. And, I mean, sweetened with the sucralose. And I think that's another thing that we've realized and learned throughout the whole process is expectation. If you have an expectation, it can only set you up to feel defeated. I mean, I think at that point we kind of felt like, what the hell? What are we going to do now? Whereas if we just went
Yeah.
into it like, hey, this might not taste that great, but we're here, like we're going to make changes to it, and we're going to dial this into where we want it to be. I think that mindset can really help the situation when a conflict does arise, because there's been numerous other times um, since then that we've had our high hopes, we've had our huge expectations, and not that we fall short, but something happens. There's a miscommunication or a conflict that arises. A perfect example is with Hannaford. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
we had anticipated that a few months ago. It's been longer than that actually. Probably what, 5 months
Going on
ago.
6
We were,
almost now. Yeah.
yeah, we were going to get the green light, and then obviously we had the news that we couldn't use the distributor that we had, so we had to kind of scramble from there, and then we finally got it figured out. But tying it back into this, I think just expectation can kind of ruin situations, and just having that calm, cool, collected mentality, it can go a long way. It's just like sports, right? I mean, if
Mm.
you're in a game, this is a common thing. If you're a high end team, I mean, look at UNE, right? You go into games playing the bottom feeder teams, you're like, this is going to be a breeze type of thing, and it totally turns on its head and can go the other way. So it's the same
Yeah.
thing with this side of things. But yeah, so we ended up, getting it to where we wanted to. But that was and then after we did the sampling, the roughly 20 samples or whatever, what was that breakfast place that we went to? We were like,
We went to Denny's in between. We were both starving.
oh, right, while they made
Um,
changes. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because
Final changes.
they were going to carbonate the final sample once we kind
Yep.
of got it to a point where we liked. I mean, hell, they changed the ratios of all the sweeteners around numerous times, like you said, and we also changed the ratio of the lemonade to the strawberry.
Yep.
We
Yep.
increased the strawberry to try and like mitigate some of that tartness of the lemonade and drop that down. Like, I mean, we completely revamped it, which again, like that's what that day is used for. Um, but yeah, we went through numerous samples until we got it to a point where like, okay, you know what, like this is good. Like we both enjoyed it. We're like, this is something that we can actually feel good about.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I remember, like you said, we both kind of hit the panic button and seriously considered doing artificial sweeteners. I remember thinking like, shit, this is exactly why no one does this because it
Yeah.
tastes awful. Like everyone wants a product that tastes good. Um, and I think we got it to a point where we managed to use the healthy ingredients that we wanted to, avoid all the artificial additives that we wanted to, and still created a good tasting product. But
Yeah.
yeah, back to where you were going with that. Yeah, um, they were going to, I believe they were going to pasteurize the one sample because that was another thing. We didn't want to use any preservatives, sodium benzenate, anything like that. We wanted to tunnel pasteurize it. I believe they were going to do a sample because it does affect the way it tastes slightly. So yeah, we went to Denny's and we mowed down like breakfast for four.
Yeah, yeah, seriously. Now going back to what you said though, one last thing I wanted to add onto that is like sticking to your values and like what you're really
Mhm.
shooting for. I think we'd be in a totally different position today if we didn't stick with the natural sweeteners. Because
Yeah,
think about how
absolutely.
many times in our interactions, whether it's with customers, at samplings, with distributors, like that's a main selling point for us because there
Hmm.
aren't many brands that do that. So I think the fact that we stuck to our values, and since then, I believe we've even honed in more on that and
Hmm.
not steering away from what we truly believe in. And we're even focusing on that even more now with the college athletes, right? Like we're redefining our initial audience of what we were going for instead of being so broad of just athletes. Like we're dialing into this is created for the college athlete. And I think, the more you can stick to your values and the more that you can make iterations and changes within those values, the better off you're going to be down the road. So I thought that, I mean, thank God that we did that and made that decision, especially early on. I mean, we didn't really know what we were doing or the repercussions or the benefits that we could see because of that, but obviously now we do. But yeah, then anyways, obviously after the breakfast, we went back, grabbed the carbonated samples, and then we went straight back to the hotel and just crunched numbers the whole night. I think the reason why we were doing that is because we were like, we got to find a way to get this produced this summer because that was our goal. We wanted to produce in the summer flavor, strawberry lemonade, and we spent what 6 hours, 7 hours that night just running through ingredient costs and production costs and volumes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because it was right there, and like once we basically gave them the okay, like this is what we want to do. Um, they told us, okay, 4 weeks to produce the final documents. Which, so for reference, the final documents are basically like your batching instructions for how to produce the
The
drink.
recipe.
Basically, yeah, the recipe for the co-packer to follow when they're mixing it. And when we left there, they gave us the list of one co-packers, and at this point, we were going to produce with Power Brands. But they also gave us the list of ingredient suppliers and the costs, and we started crunching about okay, like we didn't know exactly how much we were going to need at that point because also that's included in the final documents. But we started crunching numbers for cost of production, everything like that, ingredients, where we're going to get cans from. Can Power Brands do cans? Like at that point, it was like, okay, this is real. Like, now we have a potential product coming to life. We need to find a source of cans, and we'd already, I believe, we had the can design at this point.
Yeah.
Um, but now it was like, okay, we need to figure out where we're going to get cans. Are we going to do digitally printed? Are we going to get sleeve cans? How does this work? Do we pay for the tops? Like, we didn't know any of this.
Yeah, but you know what? I
How do
think
the
even
tabs work?
even more important than that is at that point in time, we didn't even know if we were going to get the money to actually
Yeah.
make this thing happen. So, and I think that's just a testament of we talk about it all the time too, is just like going, like taking the action to actually do it. And then you figure
Mhm.
it out as you go. Like there's been so many times where we're in uncharted territory where we've never been before and we go and we're like, we know
Mhm.
we're going to get slapped in the face and we got to find our way around it. And I think that was one situation where we did. And that's happened numerous times since then. But yeah, I mean, that was a very good learning experience for us, which obviously a few episodes from now, when we talk more about funding side of things and all that, we can dive a little bit deeper. Um, but yeah, is there anything else that we missed from that time before we went to Gold's Gym?
No, I think that covered just about everything from as far as meeting with Power Brands and kind of our
Yeah,
expectations leaving there, and what was expected of us now that, okay, like, in a month's time, we're going to have batching instructions. We need to have a plan in place here. Not that we had a plan in place, but now it's like starting to dial in the specifics of, okay, who's going to source this? How are we going to do this? Like you said, we were still waiting for the money. Um, and yeah, trying to just get all the pieces in place.
yeah, and I guess fast forward to now too. I remember having a conversation. I don't know who it was at Power Brands, but we were talking about the third flavor and getting a formula done, and they were super impressed because they were like, never mind do people rarely get to a second or third flavor, but very few get out of the product development phase of the formulation and actually have a physical product in hand, like a small percentage, which was cool to hear. It makes you feel like you're doing things right because obviously I think that's one thing. It's nice to hear those things every once in a while because it is like oftentimes when you're doing something that hasn't been done before, not that an energy drink hasn't been done before, but the way we're doing it, um, it kind of feels like, are we on the right track? Are we moving in the right direction? So that was cool to hear. Um, just the fact that we can keep finding ways to make it work and then,
Mhm.
growing from there. But anyway, so stay that night in the hotel and then the next day we were like, we absolutely have to go to Gold's Gym, Venice Beach, and hopefully see some big wigs there in the bodybuilding, which you did. I don't remember seeing anybody else. I know Mike O'Hearn came in shortly after that, so we just
Yeah.
missed him.
Yeah, that would have been neat. Obviously, I guess for the non bodybuilding community that wouldn't know, that was that Gold's original gym in
I
Venice
believe
Beach
so.
there?
Yeah,
Is that
I
the
believe
story?
so.
Yeah. Um, Obviously super famous.
Watch Pumping
You know,
Iron.
we see, yeah, we see tons of um, clips on Instagram in that gym even to this day, which is super cool to say that we've been there now. But it was about 40 minutes, so I guess for reference, Power Brands was in Sherman Oaks, which was like just outside LA, and then obviously Venice Beach. So it wasn't too far from where we're at, where we're staying. And yeah, we got up at a decent time and went down there. I mean, we were at Gold's Gym for like 3.5 hours,
Yeah,
checking everything out. It was awesome, like the whole outdoor section, indoor. I mean, they had like
that was cool.
boost
That was my
fightings
first time
inside.
ever working out outside, like lifting weights, not working out outside, but lifting weights outside.
Mhm. I mean, they have a full full set of equipment and
Right.
machines out there, which was super neat. I wonder how often, just thinking of that now, like how often that stuff has to be replaced. Like it must just get totally weathered.
I'm assuming they
Um,
probably have some like tarp that they pull over
like cover it
from.
at night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would assume so.
I don't know, but
Um,
it was super cool. Um, yeah, I saw Dom Mazzetti. I guess that's his
yeah,
character name. His real name's Mike Toretto, Torrentino, something. Honestly forget. I'd have to look.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, bumped into him, and
You
he's the
could
guy
tell he was
that
trying
does
to be
all
low
the
key too. And you just
yeah,
go
all
over.
the bro science life. No, he was super cool too.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, he's got his book, The Swoley Bible and the Bro Science Life. Like that
yeah,
guy is hilarious.
yeah.
Um, yeah, the professor. So we saw him. That was kind of cool, and just tons of other like bodybuilders that not household names, but like are there to train. There were some massive guys and females there as well, which was pretty neat to see. I mean, we were like pipsqueaks there.
Oh my God, yeah, it was a joke. We had our freaking gold. I think no, well, we had no shirts on outside, but inside, I think we had our Gold's Gym. Like we ended up buying the OG uh gold
Stringers.
stringers. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was cool. And then I guess when we were walking out too, I don't think we saw them when we came in, but those the dumbbells that were they were 330 pounds each that they have there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which that's crazy. And you see those videos. I think now it's more noticeable that we've been there. So like when we see things like that on social media and stuff like that, they're like, "Oh, like, those are the dumbbells at Gold's Gym." Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's like one of their staple things there. And I think the other cool thing too is just seeing the history of that place. I mean, they have all the bodybuilders from
Oh God,
ages
yeah.
ago. You know what I mean? From the golden era and all that kind of stuff, and they all trained there. And it's just I don't know, it was a cool experience. But yeah, so we'll try to keep these episodes short. So I guess from there, obviously we flew back and we started planning for the actual production. Now that we had a sample that we liked, and we can move forward with the can production and ordering the ingredients and setting up a co-packer because well, we'll get more into this on the next one. But Power Brands ended up not producing our product. They ended up closing that section of their company, so we had to kind of scramble and find a co-packer, which obviously prolonged, as I said, always takes longer than you think.
Yeah.
But we'll dive more into our first production on the next one. We love your feedback on this, and if you guys could leave a review if you enjoyed this episode and took something away from it, whatever streaming platform you're using, Apple Podcast, Spotify,